Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine. I'm one of your hosts, Alexander Holland, and today we're talking about the movie soundtrack. And I want to be clear about the distinction we're making here today. I'm not talking about film scores. I'm not talking about the soaring orchestral works of the greats, the John Williamses or the Hans Zimmers, who write instrumental music to tell you that a shark is coming or that a planet is about to explode. That is beautiful. But that's not what we're here doing today. No, today we're talking about the curated collection. We're talking about the soundtrack album, that specific cultural artifact that functioned as a ready-made personality for anyone who bought it. We're tracing the history of the movie as a mixtape from the first synchronized recordings of sound to moving picture in the 1920s, all the way to 2023's Barbie. We're going to look at the moments where the director became a DJ, and then we'll land on the peak of the 80s and 90s, the era of the commissioned mega hit, where you couldn't walk down the street without hearing Danger Zone or I Will Always Love You. These weren't just songs. They were cultural events that often stood taller than the films they were written for. But mostly we're here to perform a sad autopsy, because really in 2026, the great soundtrack album is essentially dead. We've moved from the cohesive 12-track journey to a world of fragmented Spotify playlists and 15-second TikTok sounds. We've traded the cultural snapshot for the viral clip. Or have we? I'm going to have to ask my co-host. We're asking what happens to our collective memory of a film when we stop listening to the music together. To help me dig through the crates of our cinematic history, I'm joined by a man whose own life is scored entirely by 90s Britpop. He's a tenured professor of podcasting. He's John Junior Boost Maloney. John, are you there? And do you still have your copy of the Trainspotting soundtrack, or did you lose it in a move back in 2004?
Yeah, I did. I had lost it in a whole wallet of CDs. Some of them, many of them soundtracks. And I don't know where it is. It's with my Snake Eyes poster and my Phenomenon poster. All great soundtrack films. But I'm very excited. I'm enjoying this trip down memory lane already. I've spent the day dwelling in the past, looking at some of the deep history of soundtracks, but also revisiting some of my favorite soundtracks and reflecting on what you said about the ready-made personality, which I must admit I've lacked since the decline of soundtracks.
You used to just come to school and be like, I'm from the movie The Crow. I'm the Crow.
Exactly.
And you'd have that CD. I was like, wow, this kid's fucking lame.
I'm Brandon Lee. And then he accidentally got shot on the set of The Crow, didn't he? That's a whole other episode. We could do do a whole episode about gun mishaps on film sets, just with The Crow.
We
Alec
absolutely could get one of our favorite DPTM friends of the show into the
Kicking Boys, the Alec Baldwin on the set of Rust, firing guns everywhere.
Set gun mishaps episode coming in 2026. John, when you wrote me and you said this, I said this is going to be real fun. And I remembered you specifically. I'm going to get to some of the film's soundtracks that I remember from you and some of our other friends that would be played in cars. And you know, people would love a film and then they would be playing the soundtrack to that film in the car.
Yeah,
and you'd just be like, wow, we are the coolest dudes ever driving down Hindley Street with the Reservoir Dogs soundtrack just playing.
Yeah. I had part of the inspiration for suggesting this topic was that the first album I ever bought on CD, I'm pretty sure, I'd previously gotten a tape of Kylie Minogue's Locomotion when I was a very young.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. And
that's a great song.
And then when I was about 12, I watched the movie Stand By Me, which is, of course, a Rob Reiner classic, poor old Rob Reiner, and I've been thinking about him in recent weeks in light of his shocking death. But that movie I still love to this day, and I loved the soundtrack. As you know, I became kind of a big soul guy later in my life.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of partly inspired by some of the songs on that soundtrack, one in particular being Stand By Me, obviously But anyway.
I loved Lollipop Lollipop. From
Lollipop
Stand By Me.
Lollipop.
Lollipop Lollipop. Oh, lolly, lolly,
Exactly.
Lollipop.
So I can't remember if it was because I was just thinking about Rob and Stand By Me, but I was playing the soundtrack to Stand By Me while I was bathing my 1-year-old daughter, because I thought these are kind of fun, boppy songs that she'll enjoy playing in the bath. And then that just got me thinking about, the fact that it was the first album I ever owned, the fact that it was quite a popular thing to go and obtain the soundtrack to a movie. It was a bit of I guess it was a way of demonstrating that you were a true fan of a particular movie. It was a way of kind of reliving and delving into the sort of lore and atmosphere of that movie. And we might get into some of that. And particularly when people didn't have home video, which is kind of before my time, I must admit. But I mean, I wasn't able to have every movie I wanted on home video, but especially before that became even a thing that, people could have it all. Soundtracks were a very important way to stay in touch with a film that you'd enjoyed, because you'd go and see it at the movies and then you'd think, well, I've got no way to watch that again until it's televised or it's re-released or whatever. So I can buy the soundtrack and at least I can enjoy, maybe it'll have some audio clips between the songs of my favorite scenes from the film. And there are some examples that we might come to of film soundtracks, which are basically so peppered with these snippets from the film that you could basically get an idea of the whole narrative of the film just from listening to the soundtrack. So they became a kind of condensed way to relive the experience of the film. And of course, a way to do that in my time, in the dead zone between a film's release on the big screen and its release on VHS. You could say, I don't have to forget about that movie. I can just go and buy the soundtrack, and everyone will know that I'm really into Reservoir Dogs, or that as we'll come to, that I'm really into the Robert Altman classic Pret-a-Porter, which everyone forgot. But of course, everyone remembers Here Comes the Hot Stepper from that soundtrack.
Yeah, and there are a few examples that we will get to, I'm sure, of film soundtracks that have outlived the films themselves. I kind of mentioned one in the intro there, which I think, I don't know who's really watching The Bodyguard.
Yeah.
But I will always love You Get Out of Town.
Exactly.
What a song that is. John, I thought we could start the episode by kicking it back to the very start of where movies and sound, they fall in love and they form a very beautiful relationship. So the earliest foundations of public cinema we have in around the 1890s to the 1920s, and this is before you could record sound and synchronize it to a film. So we take for granted that pictures and music and recorded music line up, but in the 1890s to 1920s, you had orchestras that would play to a movie. So you'd go to the movies and there would be like a piano sometimes, or an organ, or a small orchestra. And then in 1908, we have a film called The Assassin of the Duke of Guise. And this was one of the first films with an original score. So I think before this, you would just go and see a movie and I guess they would just play whatever the pianist kind of felt like. I think maybe they came with cue sheets that said, I think this is literally what happened. It said, play sad song here, play, and then I guess the pianist would go, oh yeah, I'll play whatever vibe I feel like. I have a bit of a motif here that's a bit happy.
Yeah.
So 1926, Don Juan, there's a fully synchronized orchestra. 1908, Assassination of Duke, original score. So I guess the orchestra's playing the score, and then in 1926, Don Juan, the first major film released with a fully synchronized orchestral score recorded on discs using the Vitaphone system, often mistaken for the jazz singer. That came up a lot in my notes, but that was not it. So once that happens, once 1927 happens, suddenly this whole world opens up, because now you can synchronize the music, to the film to recorded music, so you can start putting anything you want on.
Fascinating.
And then and then in the 1950s, you basically have orchestral music then for the next 20, 30 years.
And just to note, the first one, 1908, which you briefly touched on.
1908.
That was
That's the first original score. Yeah.
yeah, and that was scored by Charles Camille Saint-Saëns, who people will know. He's a famous French composer. I mean, if you put him in Spotify, the first tracks that come up, you'll absolutely know them. He's a kind of romantic classical music composer. So it was interesting because he's, it's like Mozart or Beethoven being alive, and then at the era of film, and then them going, oh yeah, I'll just get him to do a few tracks for the movie, or in this case, do the entire score for the movie. But he just happened to be alive at the time that film was coming into, it was becoming possible, but also he was French. And I think some of the earliest experiments in film were, of course, in France.
Yeah, and they were the pop writers of the day as well, weren't they? You'd go, if you wanted a hit, that's who you go to.
Exactly.
Straight away, knock at his door.
Yeah, you'd go down to some kind of squalid studio apartment in Montmartre and knock on his door, and he'd tell all the courtesans to get out of the room, and then he'd say, "Yeah, what do you need? I could have it to you in 2 weeks."
That was Don Juan, and then in the 50s we start moving from orchestral music into, now we're talking about actually early kind of theme songs and early marketing. So there's a film called High Noon that came out in 1952 that came with a song called The Ballad of High Noon that was released on radio before the film premiered. So basically we start to see how by 1952 we start to see now how music can be used to actually market a film. And I instantly, when I think about theme songs or, music that was used to market films, that's basically we were deep into that era when we grew up. I mean, the first thing that I think of is probably I definitely did. I saw I think it's a Guns N' Roses song that was on the Terminator 2 soundtrack.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
They put Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator in the music video, who walks through the crowd of a Guns N' Roses gig menacingly towards the band. I think it's Guns N' Roses.
It is. And, I remember I looked at it this morning. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, I don't know what this is, but I want this, looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
And then I just knew that was, it's on the Terminator soundtrack.
It gives
that's your...
It's brilliant because it's like we'll come back to it maybe, but it's it became a way of obviously exciting people, getting the film into the zeitgeist, getting people curious about, what is this? What is this going to be? And combining the sort of, star power of Axl Rose and Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of cross-promoting each other. And at that time, they may well have been, this is another thing we can come back to as kind of one of the driving forces, but they may well have been making money for the same company ultimately. They might have been signed to the film and the band might have been signed to the same production label. But another one in there, though, just in that early period, was Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1938, which was apparently the first soundtrack to be commercially released separately to the film. And of course, it would have been all sort of, hi ho, it's off to work we go kind of stuff. But of course, Walt Disney, a absolutely consummate innovator. So that was, very early on, 1938. And everyone thought the storm clouds of war are brewing over Europe. I just want to go and buy Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and tune out.
Just hide in your basement with your little record player with that playing over and over again. Of course, hi ho, hi, and we all know those songs.
Yeah.
Hi ho, hi ho.
I just want to be dopey. I don't want to hear about the invasion of Czechoslovakia.
And then a very important moment, John, is in we hit the 50s, and in 1955 we have a film called Blackboard Jungle, and the director decided to put Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and the Comets, Bill Haley and his Comets, at the start of the film, and suddenly that helps make rock and roll more mainstream because so it started having this hand in hand effect. And it's one of these examples of using pre-existing music as a bit of a cultural statement, and I think it became number one on Billboard as well. So it started showing that films could kind of launch songs, and define
interesting
cultural moments. And then suddenly after this, after this moment where Blackboard Jungle comes out, you've got youth music centered cinema as itself, not as background orchestra, not as background orchestras began to decline in dominance around this time. Suddenly, like in the 50s, you had like years and years of that orchestral stuff. And then we hit 1960s. And John, this is one of your favorite eras. We got one of your favorite films here, 1967, The Graduate, because you were a big Simone and Garfinkel fan.
I was a big fan of cougars. I just love I love a seductive cougar, and being coaxed into an affair by an older, sophisticated woman. And I loved Simon and Garfunkel, so that movie ticked all my boxes. But yeah, of course, that was Cuckoo Cuckoo, Mrs. Robinson, of course.
Yeah. So The Graduate, using songs as using songs thematically as motifs in the music in the movies.
So that's kind of another step, isn't it? Where there's a thematic tie-in between the songs. I mean, you can appreciate the songs as songs in their own right, and they don't have to be about they're not kind of narrating the film, but they have a thematic overlap with the film, so that,
that's right.
Either they talk about what's going on in the film or the themes of the film, or they just typify the kind of themes at a broader level. But, what you get with The Graduate is then what you get later on with, say, what's that song John Bon Jovi did for Young Guns 2, Blaze of Glory. It's all about gunslingers, because he's writing it for the movie Young Guns, which is about, gun-toting cowboys. So you've got this kind of okay, well, this would fit very well into the scene and complements the movie, but then long after people forget about the movie, they'll just enjoy that song on its own.
Yeah, and the balance there, of course, is if you're an artist with a bit of skill and a certain kind of integrity, is that you don't directly kind of narrate the film, but we will get to, I'm sure, that in the 1980s and into the 90s, we started getting songs written for films where an artist would just basically give you the plot of the film, maybe even use the fucking characters' names.
Exactly.
in the actual song itself. Another couple from big milestone moments for soundtracks in the late 60s. We've got Easy Rider from 1969, which the soundtrack features Hendrix, The Byrds, Steppenwolf, to give you, because that's what bikers were listening to. Dang. And then Midnight Cowboy, 1969. Right. They grabbed some beautiful Harry Nilsson. Everybody's talking at me. Yeah, exactly. And then, John, we go into the 70s, artist-driven and standalone soundtracks. So we got Superfly by Curtis Mayfield, which is like original songs written for the film, but functioning as a standalone like soul and funk album. So it's like they went to him and said, "Hey Curtis, right, we got a funky movie called Superfly, and what are we going to do?" And he's like, "Well, why not just make a funk soul album kind of for the movie? You'll watch it." And then they are these two artifacts which sort of exist independent of one another, but they support one another as well. And then
I see.
And so that's like quite a big moment. And then, of course, one of your favorites, because you're such a little disco freak, Saturday Night Fever, 1977, Bee Gees.
That really features on some, if you start digging around, this is obviously on people's lists of kind of the most significant film soundtracks, along with things like Bodyguard, which you've already talked about. But you get, you get a thematic tie-in. It's about the kind of world of disco, but then you've got actual classics like Staying Alive, Saturday Night Fever, Night Fever. I think the actual song is just called Night Fever. Night Fever. And in my opinion, they're both awful songs, but they are very much typify what's going on in the film, and they become kind of truly cross-promotional in that the film elevates the status of the songs, but then the songs kind of, the songs basically make the film much more memorable and then have a life of their own that, people will listen to those songs now and Most of them won't have seen Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
You know, they'll just kind of go, well, that's just kind of a disco era song.
Yeah, and I guess the power and reach of Saturday Night Fever was such that it didn't just export a song or an artist or an album. It exported a genre of music to the world. So it said, hey, world, do you know about disco? People said, yeah, I've kind of maybe heard of it. And then they said, well, you're going to really, really love it for the next couple of years before this soundtrack and movie is the start of it being oversaturated and everybody's going to get real sick of it real soon. And we'll get the death of disco movement. But before that, you had Saturday Night Fever. And I can even picture I can picture the album cover in my head of that.
Yeah, me too.
Beautiful song.
And that kind of presages things like, you know, Footloose and Dirty Dancing, which again become, I mean, sort of, I mean, they're not musicals, but they're almost remembered as if they are, because the combination of film and soundtrack is so tightly woven that people can't really remember the film without remembering the music from the film, and vice versa. You know, if you think about all those, if you think about time of my life, time of my life. It's the kind of, you know, you can't really, I mean, you sort of appreciate that song maybe as just a song in its own right. Appreciate it, not necessarily meaning you like it, but also you're kind of picturing Patrick Swayze doing his thing while you're listening to that song.
Like as soon as you said that, I can kind of picture Patrick Swayze and he's looking at Baby and they're sort of moving.
Putting her in the corner.
They're moving. He's putting her in the corner. Somebody else is putting her in the corner. He's desperately trying to get her out of the corner.
He's carefully removing Baby from the corner to the tune of Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes.
Beautiful. And now, John, what an era, 1980s. We're talking hit singles and MTV synergy. So some key characteristics of the 1980s soundtrack era. Pop songs really, really written specifically for films.
Yeah.
So straight away, you've mentioned Footloose. We should mention Top Gun.
Yeah.
So like Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone is written for the film, and Take My Breath Away by, I think they were called Berlin, was also specifically written for the film. And again, you hear Danger Zone in your head.
Yeah.
I'm seeing fighter jets flying.
Aircraft carriers and Val Kilmer sort of aggressively chewing gum. And it's true. And you can't really imagine. I mean, nobody puts on Danger Zone and says, I just love this song, and you say to them, oh, have you seen Top Gun? And they say no. It's all
no, I never will.
And I never will. I've got no interest in planes. I just love Danger Zone. But and also you've got now we're entering the era where I think both Take My Breath Away and Danger Zone, in the video clip, you've got scenes from Top Gun. You've got characters, you know, in character as as Top Gun people, as Top Guns, if you will. And you've got this kind of cross promotion going on. And an important aspect of that is MTV, which kicks off around this time, right? So that became incredibly popular, and it became a way for film companies to market, film production houses to market their films. You know, if you put a trailer on in an ad break or before a movie or whatever, people might be interested in it or they might not. But if they're watching MTV, they're actually interested in the music that's playing. They're interested in the video clip as a cultural artifact in itself. So they're much more attentive, and it basically allows you to have a glorified trailer on high rotation. And people develop this relationship with the song, but then they kind of, you know, if the movie hasn't come out yet, and often it hadn't, it kind of whets their appetite about, well, what is this? You know, I love this song. I love the atmosphere of this character, you know, whether it's Tom Cruise or it's Arnie or it's you know, Coolio talking to Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds or
Yeah.
whatever. It starts shoving that film into the zeitgeist even before it's come out. And it allows them to, do a kind of glorified teaser trailer.
Yeah.
And so very often you get these singles being released during this time and into the 90s before a film has come out to kind of prepare audiences for the film. And they will become, they'll create a buzz that they'll also sort of set the mood for the film that makes people go, oh, this film's going to be about an inner city school where Michelle Pfeiffer is just trying to make a difference.
Oh man, I hadn't thought about Coolio for a while. This is why I love this show, because it's bringing back. I saw Dangerous Minds at the cinema as well,
Wow.
and I think. And look, it's funny you should say this, John. I think I saw Dangerous Minds because everybody loved that song, and it was a fucking cool song, and everybody saw the music video.
Yeah.
And you're right, that was the trailer, and it's more powerful than a trailer because, a trailer is just like it comes, it goes, that's it.
Yeah.
But, the music video is getting played over and over again. You
Exactly.
get the images from the music video in your mind, then the song is on the radio, and again, you're picturing Coolio and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Right. You're thinking about the film, even just when you're listening to the song, and you haven't even seen the film. You've just seen the sort of snippets from the video clip. At the same time, you've got these companies which by then have fused into juggernauts, Paramount, Warner, Columbia, this is total kind of vertical integration. They're saying, I've got an artist over here. I've got a film over here. I want the artist to raise his or her profile. So I'm going to put them on that.
That's right.
And I want the film's profile raised sometimes by the star power of the artist, or sometimes by, the fact that the film itself is really tying in with what the song is, and it's just going to the two are just going to become this marketing package. And rather than, if I go to a scorer and get a kind of independently made soundtrack, of course they might own the rights to that music. They might go off and they might kind of try to limit the extent to which I can use it outside the film, whatever. But if you've just got like a stable of filmmakers and musicians, then obviously you're just making money from both ends of that deal you're profiting from. And one of the weird things that we'll come back to, I'm sure, about the current environment that's probably led to the demise of soundtracks, at least of that kind, is that same force, vertical integration, which leads people to think, well, maybe I'll just make that music with AI so that I don't have to spend that money, or so that, I can make money from the music myself on Spotify or whatever it is, and make money from the film. And there's no kind of external third parties there that I need to lose money on. But yeah, you definitely have that kind of, so, in addition to MTV, you've got these kind of big production houses just rolling between the musical world and the film world.
You're making me also think, John, about that kind of that you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Artist gets promotion, film gets promotion. I'm thinking before we leave the 1980s, we got to mention Bat Dance by Prince, which I watched the music video of. I don't think Prince performed Bat Dance live a lot at his shows.
It was pretty. They must have just driven up to his house with a truck of money, I think.
Yeah, but it is funky, and it is that era of like the entire music, I don't think it includes any footage of the film, which is a thing that I remember from our era. Is the music video might be a normal kind of music video with some of the kind of look and feel of the film, and then usually in like the bridge of the song they would just start running clips of the movie. Like, so it would get to like the bridge of the song that was on the soundtrack of the film, and it would be all kind of soaring and emotional, and it would just start playing
clips
with the sound down, like clips of the movie.
But
and
sometimes
then
like actual, lines from the movie, right? There'd be a bridge, and then it'd be Michael Keaton or whoever going like, "I'm Batman," and then it would be back to Prince singing. So weird.
Yeah, and everybody check out Bat Dance by Prince. It's a very cool music video. I don't think it includes clips of the movie. It might, but it certainly is. It's like in the Batman world, in the cave.
okay.
There's like Joker people around.
Yeah.
Bat Dance by Prince. And John, we cannot leave the 1980s without talking about what we alluded to before, which is, you had we were sort of leading up to, we're in this era where you would write a song for a film, but it wouldn't sound like it was directly about the film.
Yeah.
And by the time Ray Parker Jr. comes in the picture, that's all out the window. And he gives us a little song from a movie called Ghostbusters. And he thought, I'll write a song which is sort of peripherally related to Ghostbusters, and it's going to be a song called Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And then, the Ghostbusters song is obviously just about the Ghostbusters directly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is there a stronger movie? I think it would be hard to argue that there is a stronger connection between, obviously it's called Ghostbusters, but Ghostbusters seems like such a unique and powerful movie soundtrack song because it's just instantly recognizable. It's massive. It's fun. And it's kind of like, this is entirely about the movie, but it almost became so big that even though it's entirely about the movie, it kind of is its own thing.
It's true.
Now.
Yeah, it's true. It became because it's so cheesy, you can sort of listen to it and obviously you can't really listen to it without thinking about the movie Ghostbusters, whereas you can listen to another 80s classic, Glory of Love by Peter Cetera, without thinking about Karate Kid 2. In fact, I've only ever thought about it without thinking about Karate Kid 2 until I realized it was written for the soundtrack of Karate Kid 2 in 1986. But yeah, Peter had a bit more of a kind of established artistic reputation, I guess. And he wasn't just going to make a film, a song where he talked about Ralph Macchio for 2 minutes and
various karate moves.
Yes, exactly.
Do a fly kick.
Well, I want to
do a crane kick.
I want to maybe be able to use this song in other contexts. Whereas Ray was like, nah, fuck it. It's just Ghostbusters. Unless he was like approached by the studio and then he was like, what's crazy? I've written this song about busting ghosts. It would work perfectly.
Bustin' makes me feel good. One of the greatest lines ever in a song. Buster makes me feel good.
Bustin' makes me feel good. The deep set, the kind of ASMR shiver that you get from busting a ghost.
Busting ghosts. And John, maybe just a passing reference to Back to the Future, 1985.
Of course, yeah.
Huey Lewis and the News. Man, that's ging 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 ba jump bam power of love. So and obviously in Back to the Future, they're doing this thing where the director is able to use music to place you as the audience in the era, because obviously Back to the Future is skipping eras. So you've got your like 1950s music to say we're in the 1950s, and then when you're in 1980s, you got Huey Lewis and the News.
Not only that, but in a further example of kind of the intertwined cross-promotional nature of these things, Huey Lewis is in the film, making a cameo. So he's getting paychecks from every direction.
Yeah, and Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters rips off a Huey Lewis and the News bass line, and I believe that he was then compensated in court after that. The bass line from Ghostbusters is just a direct rip from a Huey Lewis and the News bass line of a song. And so check that one out if you want to, guys. Huey Lewis is absolutely all over this episode. So that's Back to the Future. Man, I also remember it's Mr. Sandman straight away when I think he first arrives in Hill Valley, and he's exploring the city, and he's crashed the DeLorean, he's walking through the town square, and there's like a crane down of of the camera to
Yes.
Marty, and it's kind of showing the square ding 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 ding.
And of
Let's go
course, the same year that Karate Kid 2, my second favorite movie came out. My first favorite movie, Stand By Me, came out, and that is another one that perfectly uses the soundtrack to perfectly capture a kind of 50s Americana. And they're actually the boys are listening to, Will Wheaton and River Phoenix, and the boys are listening to the radio, and it's a classic sort of bubblegum pop radio, 1950s small town radio station. All right, up next we got Big, all this sort of shit. And there's several scenes where that's happening, but then they're playing actual music. So the soundtrack is not just a kind of mood creation. It's really kind of thematically setting up the film, and then the soundtrack itself then became quite popular in its own right. But also another one which you might not be aware of, which I wasn't until I started looking into this for today, is Against All Odds by Phil Collins, which is made for a 1984 film of the same name.
No way.
Called Against All Odds, which nobody remembers, but they do remember.
I did not know this.
Yeah, they do remember the Phil Collins song. And I always thought that must be about Phil's life. Must be.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And I always thought that's showing a lot of depth for a man who reportedly broke up with someone via fax or whatever he's supposed to have done. But apparently it's not from his life. It's from the film Against All Odds. So there you go. There's a couple of that's a kind of prime example of one where the song has well and truly outshone the film.
Yeah, another one, John, that you've made me remember is one of my favorite songs, Heaven by Bryan Adams, is from a movie called is from a film as well that nobody saw. The song first appeared on the soundtrack to the 1983 film A Night in Heaven, although it was not released at the time. And I think he wrote it. For that particular film as well. And again, who the fuck knows that film? But it's one of my favorite songs of all time. John, we got to go to your favorite era. Things getting real experimental and fun and crazy in the 1990s as we get the director as a DJ / cultural tastemakers as directors, curate music to define the tone, an era of subcultures. And I mean, the first one that springs to my mind, John, because we have a personal connection with it. I remember finishing high school. Everybody was driving around in cars with music. And I remember we were in the car of our friend Andrzej Skripiak, and there was this great music playing from a bygone era, and then interspersed was sounded like a kind of not quite a radio DJ, but I remembered that it was the monotone voice of that comedian that was instantly recognizable, and it was the Reservoir Dogs soundtrack.
Yeah, of course.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
I certainly do. And that's certainly an example, isn't it, of the soundtrack being a distinct cultural product? Because I'm pretty sure that I mean, there's no way that comedian, what's his name? It's got a very
Stephen Wright. I just looked it up.
I knew he had a kind of
the DJ
name.
for the radio was chosen to be Stephen Wright, a comedian known for his deadpan delivery of jokes.
Yeah, but then that's not in the film. So it's just kind of like, it's just they've just kind of produced all this extra content for the soundtrack, and it's not even kind of to do with the film. It's not like he's saying, there's been reports that Steve Buscemi has been tortured in a warehouse or whatever the fuck happened. I haven't watched it in a while. But it's just kind of it's just a thing in itself, and quite a, in a very Tarantino-esque style, quite a kind of indulgent thing where it's like he's just producing this elaborate kind of imagined world. And then there's all this.
It's like an imagined, yeah. So the soundtrack is just like it's like a radio station that you're listening to, kind of, and then like Grand Theft Auto would take that on later.
Exactly.
And create these kind of fake radio shows.
And then you had Steelers Wheel.
That's right. And I mean that this is worth mentioning too. You have a film redefining what people think about, what their point of reference is, what they picture in their mind when a song is played. Because before
That's true.
Reservoir Dogs, everybody really enjoyed "Stuck in the Middle with You"
Yeah.
by Steelers Wheel
Yeah.
as a kind of fun, upbeat sort of poppy song where somebody was in love with somebody. Here I am, Klaus to the left of me, jokes to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. And then after everybody saw Reservoir Dogs, now everybody just listens to that song and thinks about somebody being brutally tortured.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I always thought about it that way, but that's just my own sensibility. It's true. And that was that must have also been. I mean, it must have not just culturally but commercially been incredibly successful in its own right. As an album.
But perhaps, I mean, that was the soundtrack that I listened to the most from Tarantino. But the one that is more famous is Pulp Fiction. So the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. I mean, as soon as I think of Pulp Fiction, I think of music straight away. There was a teenage wedding and the old folks wished them well. The twist scene.
Yeah.
And ding, 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 you'll be a woman soon.
Yeah.
And so Pulp Fiction is entirely pre-existing songs curated to a new cinematic meaning. I guess this means that, I wonder if this is right. I haven't looked this up, but this is, my notes are suggesting that there's no scored music whatsoever, because I guess maybe we should also mention that although we're not talking about scored music, a lot of these movies are a combination of scored music and these pre-existing songs or songs with lyrics that were written for the film. But this seems to be suggesting that Pulp Fiction doesn't have any of that, and the entire soundtrack was just pre-existing songs. And then Trainspotting 96, straight away I just think of Underworld with shouting lug,
of course,
shouting lug. Blur is on that.
Another one from 1996, Phenomenon by John Travolta, which nobody really remembers. But it's got that lovely Change the World cover by Eric Clapton.
Okay.
Which he wrote for the film. It's another example of a very established artist being given a lot of money to make a song for a film and then performing that song independently of the film. But the film itself kind of faded into 90s obscurity. A bit like the film Sliver, also from the 90s, with Sharon Stone and one of the crappier Baldwin brothers, which featured, of course, Can't Help Falling in Love cover by our favourites UB40.
And again, talking about the trailer, I watched that music video because it was on every fucking morning because that song was #1 in Australia for weeks and weeks. And I remember just watching the music video and there'd be these weird clips of a weird Baldwin. And I was like, what the fuck movies? Why is this weird Baldwin sat in front of all these screens? This is weird.
It's true, because the whole thing was like he was a kind of perverse landlord who was spying on the people who owned apartments.
That's right, and that's why we need that UB40. That's why we need a UB40 Elvis cover in this film.
Exactly.
A couple others, John, that we should mention from the 90s. We cannot not mention. Well, actually, first one I'll mention is Bryan Adams. Everything I Do It From You, from Robin Hood.
That was another
Prince
one
of
where
Thieves.
the video clip feasured Kevin Costner, I think.
And the song is way bigger than the film ever was. Like it was one of the longest #1 singles every single week.
Yeah.
Consecutive #1s in the history of recorded music. I'm also thinking about the Goo Goo Dolls with Iris, which is from what movies? It's from City of Angels. Music from the motion picture.
There you go.
Yeah, and with Nicolas Cage, and then
sing a little bit of that one for me. Goo Goo Dolls, Iris.
Well, I'd give up
Oh,
forever
right.
to touch you.
Yeah, okay.
'Cause I know that you feel me somehow. And I don't think the world. Goo Goo Dolls, friends of the show here at Don't Praise the Machine. Huge Goo Goo Dolls fan. If you want to find one of the Goo Goo Dolls, if you're in Australia in particular, Goo Goo Dolls song called Name. Oh man, I listen to that song several times a week. I love it so much. And John, we cannot
Another
leave
Nicolas Cage one, if I may. Con Air.
Yeah.
Part of he was really on a tear at that point. He was doing The Rock. He was doing Con Air. He was doing probably Face Off around that time. And Con Air has How Do I Live by Leon Rimes, which I believe was also certainly, if not written for that, certainly was released on the soundtrack and kind of shot to fame because of Con Air. How do I live without you? And I want to know.
John, we cannot leave the 90s without bringing in one of the friends of the show, Don't Praise the Machine. We're going to talk about 1997 song and film Men in Black from Will Smith.
Yes.
And again, this is very much in the tradition of Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters. Will Smith really took the baton of that sort of rappy, singy. well, I guess Ray Parker Jr. wasn't rapping; he was singing. But Will Smith has decided, we did a whole episode. We did a whole episode 50.
Yeah,
I think the entire episode is about like rap songs that directly reference the movie.
Yeah.
That was episode 50 of Don't Praise the Machine.
yes, exactly. The wrap-up rap.
It came, the wrap-up rap. That's right, guys. Go back to episode 50.
It's one of my favorites.
Podcast.
We did our
Check out
very
the
own wrap-up rap for the film
Did our very
Mrs.
own
Doubtfire, which I'm still very proud of.
It took fucking ages. Maybe I'll play that at the end of this episode.
That's a good idea.
I will. I have that somewhere. So guys, stick around to the end of the episode and I will play the wrap-up rap that me and John wrote for the film Mrs. Doubtfire. but the wrap-up rap, it was this era where film studios would commission a rapper, more often than not Will Smith, and he would say, I'll do you a poppy rap song and I'll just basically give you the narrative of the film in the rap song. The good guys dress in black. Remember that, just in case we ever face to face and make contact. Man, I can't believe I remember.
There you go. And he did Wild Wild West after that.
Yeah.
Bad Boys, he probably did one for. Speaking of which, just quickly, if anyone wants to put in seed money, I had a thought the other day, which was I'm going to open up a Bad Boys themed Italian restaurant called Martino Lorenzo's, and the slogan for the restaurant is going to be
Bad Boys.
It's going to be "You Focaccia boarding pass." So
That's funny. Guys, DPTM, patreon.com/don't praise them, DPTM. Go to the Patreon, become a member, and you can help seed Johns.
you get a free pasta for life if you're one of our foundation investors.
And of course, I wonder if Bad Boys, the film, which came first, chicken or the egg? Did they have already go, we're going to make a cool movie, and I like song Bad Boys by Inner Circle? Because, and in fact, Martin Lawrence, he sort of sings Inner Circle's Bad Boys, and they kind of sing it in the film, don't they? Like they shoot up somebody, and then they go like Bad Boys, Bad Boys. What you gonna go?
Yeah, it's
true. But of course, that was the theme song to the television show Cops, which is why it was already known. So man, another powerful movie.
We could do a bloody episode about Cops. What an iconic, strange show that was. I just was sitting in my living room as a teenager looking at like people getting booked in South Central LA for some reason. Another one from the 90s. I Believe I Can Fly. I think it's from the 90s. I Believe I Can Fly.
It's from Space
Jam, which was released for that film by, it'd been previously done by other artists, but it was done by a beautiful musician and a disgraceful human being, R. Kelly.
That's true. I think a lot of people, that's a lot of people's favorite song. And they play it it's played at a lot of, graduations and
Yeah,
weddings and
weddings.
stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine if that was your wedding song. You'd be like, oh, is there a good cover we can maybe pretend we always had in mind when we played that song?
Yeah. John, let's kick it. Let's kick it almost to the end here. Let's kick it to the 2000s.
Yeah.
I think it's important to mention the soundtrack "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" from
Yes.
the Coen Brothers. Again, I watched a YouTube video about the birth of stomp clap music, which is that kind of Lumineers mid 2000s, and they were mentioning that they think that one of the key drivers of that music was basically the soundtrack to "Oh Brother, Where Art
Really?
Thou?" And the person on the YouTube channel suggested, which I thought, I think that's actually kind of true, is that the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" soundtrack is more famous than the Coen Brothers film now. Like, it's kind of a lesser known, like, it's not lesser known, but like I think I saw it once, and then but everybody remembers that bluegrassy "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" sound.
I am a man of constant sorrow.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Actually, I'd never thought about that in relation to stomp, clap, hey music.
Yeah, you can blame the Coen Brothers for Mumford and Sons.
Fucking hell. I don't want to have to do that because I like the Coen Brothers. And another interesting example, of course, from the 2000s is 8 Mile, which was a kind of strange fictionalization of Eminem's career. And that kind of follows another sort of strange vein in the history of soundtracks, going back to Elvis and the Beatles, where they would make films which were kind of very crap, sort of surfacey, forgettable films, which were just a vehicle for the soundtrack pretty much. It was like, come and buy a ticket. You can watch the Beatles kind of, being in a kind of glorified Benny Hill comedy for an hour. And then, but they'll sing they'll make up a few songs for this film. They'll sing a few songs you already know. And then they'll release an album, which is just a soundtrack of the film. And similarly, you've got these kind of dumb, kind of Hawaiian surf movies with Elvis running around, but then he'll stop and do a sing-song scene, and then that'll end up on the album. So I think Return to Sender, his classic, was originally from a film called Girls, 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 which nobody remembers and probably is totally unwatchable. But then carrying on that tradition 50 years later, you've got Eminem doing a kind of I don't know if he actually kind of does like a full rap song in the film. That would be quite funny. But he certainly was promoting himself as an actor and as a musician in one.
Yeah, and the big single is "Lose Yourself."
That's
"Lose
right,
Yourself" is the 8 Mile.
Yeah.
Is the 8 Mile song, and he talks about the character in the film "Lose Yourself," because the film is called the character is called. Is it called Bunny or something?
That's right.
Like that?
Yeah,
I think he kind of references that character in, and everybody remembers Mom's spaghetti.
Yeah,
there's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti.
Mom's spaghetti.
You gotta lose yourself in the music, the moment, the move. John, we got to talk about Garden State.
Yeah, that's right.
2004. Zach Braff, and there's a very key scene where Natalie Portman takes off her headphones and says, "Why don't you listen to this song I really like?" Zach Braff puts them on and says, "What is this?" And she says, "Band name of the Shins, song name of New Slang." And that album really defined a kind of indie era, manic pixie girl era.
Totally did. People were wearing jeans so skin tight you could barely see them. And they were standing pigeon-toed as a way of demonstrating their fragility and vulnerability. And they were listening to new slang.
And it relaunched the career, or certainly it relaunched and exposed Colin Hay, another friend of the show, DPTM fave.
He certainly is.
Because he had a song or two on the Garden State soundtrack. It's a Beautiful World that's on Garden State.
I think that was on Scrubs, so you're mixing it up with another Zach Braff vehicle, perhaps. Or am I wrong about that? He was certainly on Scrubs. In fact, he was in Scrubs. as a cameo.
Yeah, that's right. Colin Hay's song, I Don't Think I'll Ever Get Over You. My dad loves that song, actually. So, yeah, you're right, song. You're right, John. It was I Just Don't Think I'll Ever Get Over You by Colin Hay.
Right.
Was in Garden State. And then we are now getting to kind of the end of, or to the current day. So in 2014, there was a lot of hype around the soundtrack for Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I haven't seen that movie because my doctor said that I'm not allowed to watch Marvel comic book films because it's very dangerous for my psyche.
Yeah.
I could have a psychological break
Yeah.
if I'm forced to watch
Bad for your
comic
blood
book
pressure.
universe movies. Guardians of the Galaxy 2014. This soundtrack went to number 1 on the Billboard charts, which is very interesting. Included lots of 60s and 70s pop, carefully curated to reflect the character's identity and nostalgia, and then reinvigorated these pre-existing songs decades later. And then, John, I guess when you mentioned this to me and you said, you know, the movie soundtrack's kind of died out, hasn't it? What's left of that thing? And the last one I really thought about was Barbie from 2023, where it felt like there was a soundtrack that was really tied to the film and helped market the film.
Yeah.
And you had, well, firstly, you had what I didn't like Barbie, but what I did like was Ryan Gosling playing Matchbox 20 songs.
Oh, yeah.
That was really great.
Yeah.
I said I don't know if I've ever been really loved. And then, of course, you had Billie Eilish with What Was I Made For, which I really love that song. It's a very beautiful, beautiful song.
Yeah.
I think there's also an Ice Spice song on on the Barbie soundtrack.
Icy Spicy.
She didn't.
Yeah, but I guess by then you've kind of entered an era where obviously nobody's buying CDs.
That's right. The album is dead.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be a very good vehicle for bringing individual songs to prominence, just as TV now can often be that as well. But you don't have that same sense of the soundtrack as a kind of marketable vehicle in the same way, I suppose. And certainly you wouldn't have anything like what you did, a couple of decades earlier with say Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs, where you have like a kind of ideas that are going that are going to just the soundtrack, like here's a gimmick, here's somebody who's going to be the kind of fake DJ between the songs on the soundtrack or whatever. None of that's going to happen because everyone's just getting the algo to tell them what to listen to.
Yeah, listeners consume individual tracks, losing the cohesive album experience. So like nobody's sitting down and putting on their favorite movie soundtrack and just listening to it all the way through. Everybody's just like going, I'll listen to Billie Eilish, What Was I Made For?
Yep.
And then I'll just listen to like another track that doesn't have anything to do with that. With that movie.
Yeah.
And so you lose that cohesive object.
You also don't have the same rhythm. I mean, you would have not just the soundtrack would be valuable, not just in the lead up to the film where you might release a single to kind of whet people's appetite, but also in that interim, as I alluded to earlier, between the release of the film in the cinemas and when it's eventually coming out on video and DVD, which might be quite a lag. And so that, and in those days, people buying videos and DVDs of the film was a kind of huge part of how films made money. They wanted to keep it in the zeitgeist. And one way of doing that was to sell and play the songs from the film as a soundtrack, to have them in high circulation on the radio, but to have people buying the soundtrack to the film, because that would mean, a year later or whatever it was when the DVD of Phenomenon with John Travolta came out, you'd say, oh, that's right. Or you'd say, I haven't forgotten about that film because I've been listening to Change the World by Eric Clapton all year, rather than just going, oh, well, I've moved on to other things. It's a way of kind of increasing the the shelf life of the movie's cultural influence, I guess. So all that's gone, and now we're asking on bended knee is that at least can we just have songs made by real people, and the labels are saying no, you can't.
Yeah, the next kind of big hit from a soundtrack will just be, well, I guess, I mean, this is funny. It's just funny that I'm just thinking about this now. You know, now you'll start having films where they'll just take the voice character of the actor who's playing the person and get an AI to, because the actors can't sing, you know, like George Clooney couldn't sing that song in Oh Brother Where Art Thou? No. Tried, and he was rubbish, and so they had to get somebody else to sing it for him. But nowadays they would just use AI and take George Clooney's voice print and just make it so he can so he can sing it. And that's the era that we're into now. Great. John, before we end the episode, I think I wanted to just get a couple in that were soundtracks that were a big part of my
honourable
mentions. Honourable mentions that we didn't mention. The huge one, which again, way bigger than, I've never seen the film, but my parents had the album, The Big Chill, 1983. I was just going to mention
that, yeah. Great soundtrack.
The film relied almost entirely on pre-existing 60s and 70s rock and soul hits. We're talking The Temptations, The Rolling Stones, Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, and then another one that my dad had was the soundtrack from the film The Harder They Come, and that's like Jimmy Cliff and other Jamaican artists. Songs like The Harder They Come, and You Can Get It If You Really Want It. And Dad had that soundtrack.
Yeah, great.
In the house as well. That was my honourable mentions, John.
A couple of honourable mentions from me, if I may. One interesting one is the 1991 film and the soundtrack for the film The Commitments, which you might remember. And those
Moose Dong Soli.
Exactly, Moose Dong Soli. And I always kind of couldn't really understand what this was, but it was because I think the band was a kind of fabrication or the film was basically a device for the band. I've never seen the film, but I think The Commitments pretty much only exist as a kind of artifact of that film. But of course, they produced all these songs for the film, like Mustang Sally, most famously, that have long outlived that film. Another one is the film High Fidelity with John Cusack, which was a kind of thematic tie-in, and that was about sort of music nerds. And so, of course, the film music is pretty well chosen. And Wes Anderson films from the early 2000s, before he just started to make glorified fashion ads. He was a great selector of often I don't know if he was doing it, whoever he had doing it for him.
Yeah, whoever his music supervisor was, but it might have been him as well.
Yeah, was excellent at picking quite obscure. Like, I still listen to some of those songs from things like Darjeeling Limited, and obviously, Royal Tenenbaums. He played a lot of the Kinks, and then there'll be kind of weird sort of Bollywood songs and French songs and whatever it is.
Yeah,
they were great soundtracks.
These Days by Nico in Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, what a classic.
The Jackson Browne cover by German artist Nico of like Velvet Underground World.
And of course,
that's how I first heard that song. That's version.
Right. Yeah, because you were like,
I've been out walking.
Because you're like, man, I'm going to shave my head in the mirror and whatever happened.
Yeah, Needle in the Hay.
That was Needle in the Hay, wasn't it? Yeah.
By that man who did
Smith.
kill himself. Yeah.
He did.
That's right. Sunny note to end on, John.
Yeah, that was well structured. Let's end on this. Working Class Man by Jimmy Barnes.
Yes.
An absolute classic all the way back to 1986, which, as it turns out, seems to be a pretty good year for soundtracks, or at least individual numbers on soundtracks. And one of them was in the film. In some jurisdictions, it was called Gung Ho. In others, it was just called Working Class Man, and it was a Ron Howard film, which nobody remembers. But it became, during the credits, they played Working Class Man by Jimmy Barnes, and it became an absolutely iconic Australian pub rock anthem.
I love that song.
So there you go. That's a happier.
Well, he loves a little woman. One day you'll make his wife. What a song. Here's a hot tip I can give people as well. If you want to show off that you're a music nerd, when you sing a song like I just did then, just start at the bridge and you just seem a little bit cooler than if you just go straight to the chorus. It's a little tip.
It's true. It's a little tip. It's true. It does communicate a certain depth.
It's a quick win.
Yeah.
It's a quick, easy win. Like you just say, "Oh, what about that song?" And instead of singing the chorus or the verse, you just sing the bridge or one of them or the second verse.
People are like, "Man, you really know that song." I just start at like 0.0 at the song, and then by the time, and I sing the intro, just instrumental intro. By the time I even get to the lyrics, everyone's kind of bored and awkward. I'm going, and they're like, yeah, I get it. Working class man.
You know, come on, guys. You know that song. John, everybody, we got two things for you right now. The first is if you want to become a supporter of the show, the best way to support the show, become a Patreon member. You get the episodes one day early. And you also get a bonus or members-only episode that we do once a month where me and John relieve ourselves of the amount of research that episodes like this take and we just jam back and forth. And it's a different vibe, but it's a lovely vibe. You can find us at patreon.com/DPTM or just search Don't Praise the Machine Patreon in your search engine of choice and choose the tier that's right for you and your family. Now, John, we mentioned earlier in the episode, we came up with an idea. In episode 50, we did an entire episode about the wrap-up rap phenomenon, led by Will Smith. And we wrote a song. It took fucking ages to write and it took ages to record and rap.
Did.
And the funny joke was, let's do a wrap-up rap song from the kind of era from when wrap-up raps were, which is like the mid-90s. Yeah. So we thought, let's choose a film that a wrap-up rap would be inappropriate for. And we chose the movie Mrs. Doubtfire. And we did exactly what Will Smith did, which is we just basically gave you the plot of the film in a rappy style. But we made it actually more in a kind of New Jack Swing style song. Because I'm like a huge Bobby Brown fan, and Bobby Brown did for Ghostbusters 2 a song called On Our Own, which again is just hilarious because we joke about that song quite often because the whole song seems like a song that's not about Ghostbusters 2, but then in the bridge he just starts rapping about the plot of Ghostbusters 2. And we loved it, and it's in the New Jack Swing style.
Yeah, that's right. It could be anything.
To take them
and then he's going, a Peter Venkman down in the. Just like, what? Where's this come from?
There's all the purple slime under New York City. Yeah, the whole song is like, I guess we're gonna have to do it. I guess we're gonna have to take control. Lord Vigo is in the painting and he's coming to life. What you gonna do? It's because of all the purple slime under New York City. And then it's like back to a song that's nothing to do with Ghostbusters 2. But we did our own version, and it's the Mrs. Doubtfire wrap-up rap, which we thought should have been included on the Mrs. Doubtfire soundtrack. And I think you're going to enjoy it. And I'm just happy that we get another opportunity to play it because of the amount of work that we put into it. John, would you like to throw to the song?
I'd like to, for all of you euphogenia heads out there, introduce you to a song that you're never going to forget, and you're going to want to go and watch that Robin Williams classic again. Take it away.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
The podcast.
Hey there, baby. What'd you say your name was again? Euphogenia?
Now listen up, people, let me set the scene. It's San Francisco 1993. Danny is a voice actor extraordinaire, but has a run-in with his boss and quits then and there.
Now his wife Miranda, she's had more than enough, so she files for divorce and it's about to get rough. Daniel begs the judge,
Don't take my kids away from me.
but the judge rules in favor of Miranda, you see.
Now what's he gonna do? Those kids are his life, but then he hatches a plan to get him out of this strife. He calls his brother Jack with a crazy request. Can you make me a mask and a pair of fake breasts?
I'm gonna babysit the kids disguised as a lady, I freely admit. It's a little bit shady, but I gotta see my kids if it's the last thing I do. And I've given her a name, I'm gonna tell it to you. She's Euphigenia, Doubtfire, baby.
Miranda opens the door to the interviewee. It's just a Scottish old lady who's as sweet as can be. The kids are trepidatious, but Miranda's impressed. She's gonna hire Doubtfire, and she never could have guessed.
When Doubtfire steps in, the kids think it's a disaster, cause their new housekeeper is a real taskmaster. She tries to cook dinner, but it goes haywire. Leaning over the stove, she sets her tits on fire.
She puts out the flames and orders some food. She says she made it herself, cause she's just that shrewd. Now the kids are warming up to this corpulent queen, and Miranda can't believe just how lucky she's been.
Yeah, she's Euphigenia, Doubtfire, baby. And there's something that I just can't put my finger on. Now if you're thinking that all this is too good to be true, well, let me introduce you to a guy named Stu. He's Miranda's new lover with the golden eyes, and he's taking her to dinner for a birthday surprise.
But Danny's there too, eating with another man. When his family arrived, then Danny's got to scram to the bathroom to change into Mrs. Doubtfire and add a lot of pepper to Stu's jambalaya.
Stu starts choking, and Danny runs over, and Miranda turns white as the cliffs of Dover. Danny's mask falls off, it's the big reveal. Now the ruse is up, and it's about to get real.
Dan loses the kids, not exactly a surprise when you think about the fact that he donned a disguise. Trespass, lied, and breach the orders of a court. Not much of a protagonist, I would have thought.
But nevertheless, Danny wins in the end when Miranda determines that the kids depend on this strange, sad man. And I think we all agree what a bizarre family film this has turned out to be. Yeah, that was Mrs. Doubtfire, baby. And it turned out that their dad was inside all along. Yeah.
Hey there, baby. What'd you say your name was again?